Hi and welcome. So bear with me. So today we're going to be looking at the reason why you don't have to starve yourself or isolate yourself. And we're going to look at some of the behaviours that you might do, but we're going to move away from those behaviours and we're going to look at ways in which we can start implementing new habits, new patterns that are going to help you and serve you and ultimately be better for you. Okay, so let us begin. So behaviors you might do, right? So perhaps you starve yourself by not eating, especially when you're hungry, but not that you do it intentionally, you just do it out of a force of habit. Like some people might pick their nails and bite their nails, Another one could be shutting everyone out. Shutting everyone out. And all of these behaviors that I'm describing comes from isolation, feeling lonely and isolated, right? So this is why these behaviors spark out, and this is why you run to these behaviors, because of what you're running away from, what you're feeling, what you're truly feeling, okay, which we're going to go into in a minute. So the behaviors you might do is shut everyone out, or go to your addiction, so feed your addiction in loneliness or isolation, get stuck in your own head, and what I have here is dwell in the present moment and of the past. So dwelling on things in the moment rather than doing anything at all. You're just dwelling. You're not really doing anything. You're just dwelling. Or on the opposite scale, eating because you're sad. So maybe binge eating because you're ultimately sad and feeling lonely. So the reason why we do these behaviors is because of how we're feeling inside. But we're not brought up necessarily or taught in schools or taught in society to learn how we truly feel about things and about ourselves, our identity, our worth, and all of those things. So, for example, you could be shutting yourself out from everyone else, like your friends and family, and staying in your own house because you feel lonely, because maybe it relates back to when you first felt abandoned. That's just an example, but there are reasons why you feel lonely and there's reasons why you feel isolated. So by binge eating or not talking to anybody or getting stuck in your head are a way to cope, but it's just a way to cope and that's it. It's like taking a paracetamol. It doesn't do anything other than that. It doesn't do anything other than numb your pain that you're feeling, but the feeling that you're avoiding. So if you go to your addiction, or you starve yourself, or you get stuck in your head, or you shut everyone out, you're feeding the isolation. So you're feeding the isolation, but you're not really helping yourself or acknowledging what you actually feel to know how to better yourself. So that's some of the behaviors that you might do, right? Now, the past is the past, and the past is that, quite simply. It's the past. Now, when you continue in these patterns of shutting others out, dwelling and refusing help even, choose isolation or starve yourself, you're not changing anything. You're just doing the same thing as you've always done, which you may know. And in this way, you're harming yourself and neglecting your needs that are clearly ringing loudly. Okay, so when you feel like you need to shut everyone out, or when you feel like you need to go to that addiction, that's when your needs are screaming loudly like a bell. Your needs are screaming loudly like a bell, and that's when, instead of running to all these patterns that we were doing, okay, we can look for permanent patterns. So this is what I'm going to go into now. But before I go into that, when you feed isolation, there's a problem. Your needs are not being met. And we're going to now look at what those needs, we're going to look at solutions instead of going backwards to those patterns. So, your needs are not being met. So, let's look into this. So we've looked at temporal patterns, which is shutting others out and all of the rest, right? So the permanent patterns instead of these, so the opposite to these, would be, for example, journaling what you feel in the moment that you're tempted by. So writing out or typing or writing on your notes on your phone what you're feeling in the moment. Because your needs are needing to be met quite clearly. So in order for them to be met, we need to figure out what those needs even are. So one way of doing that is by journaling what you feel in the moment. When you're feeling tempted or isolated or lonely, all of that, what do you feel in the moment? And why do you feel that as well? So for example, you could write, I feel lonely, or I feel sad. And then asking yourself, okay, why? So having a why next to it as well. So you've got a what, the problem is the what, and then a why as well attached to it, because that will identify what the real problem is behind loneliness, the real problem behind isolation, the real problem behind starving yourself, or getting stuck watching Netflix, or getting stuck in your own head, all of these things. So the next one is, like I really said, asking yourself what is really wrong and then waiting for the answer. So only you can find out that answer, and only you can give yourself the answer. Nobody else is going to give it to you because they're not you. And you can't get it from Google because, again, Google is not you. Google is not you. Google is not your head. And only you know what's going on inside your head. And God, of course. So now, another permanent pattern as a change of behaviour would be talking to close friends or family members who you generally trust. That's not always easy, and especially if you don't actually have close friends and family, then that's not going to be maybe a pattern you would choose, but you would choose the other ones for now. But talking to a close friend, if you have somebody, even just one person that you genuinely do trust, you trust them enough for them to not share your information with anybody else, but that they can give willing, honest feedback as well, then that's a beautiful thing that you have. And by talking to a close friend, in the long run, will be more of a permanent pattern than shutting yourself away from other people and not talking about your problems. Now, one thing to note when talking to close friends is you're not a burden, you're not a problem. You're not a burden and you're not a problem. And that is a belief that you might have, which is why you may not find it comfortable enough to talk to a close friend or a family member because of that belief that's holding you back. And again, with that belief, it's coming back to asking yourself why. Again, the why question, because it all relates. It's all helpful to ask yourself the whys and the whats, what the problem is and why it's there, and to help you identify. So what I'm showing you is permanent patterns as a change of behavior that you can start implementing for yourself instead of using the temporal patterns which we want to come away from. So journaling might not be your thing. Again, talking to a close friend might not be your thing either. But self-awareness, by asking yourself why you feel the way you do, instead of going to all these patterns over and over again, By asking yourself why you feel the way you do, you're breaking the cycle, you're breaking the patterns. You're actually breaking the patterns of these behaviours because you're trying to identify what the problem is. And when you identify what the problem is and why, you don't so much go back to these patterns of behaviours because you actually want to change. You want to change, you want to sort the problem out, you want to have a solution, you want to problem solve. And that's where it likely leads you when you ask the question why. It leads you to actually get into the root cause, get into the root cause of the problem, but also getting closer to understanding who you are as well. So, when you feed isolation, it's like you've given in to temptation, okay? And I'm sure you feel that when that happens. So, to practice a new habit of changing that pattern looks like open up to an honest friend or person. So again, the things that we've just really gone over here is all of these things. And these are new habits. So they're going to be unfamiliar, maybe uncomfortable to do so to begin with. But continue on in them anyway. Continue on in them. Try to go past the uncomfortable stage, the uncomfortable feeling of it all. Keep pushing past that feeling and do it anyway, because in the long run, you'll have a permanent pattern, which will hopefully be one of these, or maybe your own. Instead of feeding your addiction, starving yourself, getting stuck in your head, binge eating, going on Netflix, all the rest, or even scrolling for hours on end on your phone and not having achieved anything in a day. That sucks. So we want to come away from those patterns, obviously, and here are some examples of a permanent pattern that it can look like for you. Now, maybe one or two of these may not work for you, which is fine because we're all different in that sense. Now, I want to offer you other permanent patterns to choose from, just as ideas, okay? Just as ideas. So let's look at them real quick. So here's just a few that we can look on right now. So like I said, there's opening up to an honest friend or person. And then there's also looking at Facebook group pages that offer support for your addiction. There are lots of Facebook groups, as you know, so Facebook pages as well. And if you just type in maybe your addiction, then you might find that you'll see support to offer that. Let me know how you get on with that one, because that's where it can definitely point you to the right direction. And then there's also going outside more. Going outside more in the fresh air can really just refresh your focus and your mind on things, and it can take your mind off things by just being around nature and outside. Just a breath of fresh air is so nice, and it can it can help you to get to know yourself, or what you like and what you dislike around what you're around. Like if you're around trees, you might find that, I really like this tree, or I really, really like this bird. Or I don't so much like the wet and rainy weather. You get to know yourself a bit more just by being outside. And also there's exercise. You can start doing some training exercises if you want to. It's a bit like having the motivation, having the self-esteem. It's growing the self-esteem, growing the confidence in you by exercising. You don't have to exercise in a gym. It can be jogging. You can do like a jog, and you can do that even in your own home. It doesn't have to be in a gym setting. So some of these are just like some of the new patterns of change that we are looking at. There's also phoning a friend. Phoning a friend is always a good shout, especially when you're in a low mood, or you want some answers, or you want someone to talk to, just to vent it all out. But that's why I say journaling as well, because you're writing all your feelings out on paper, and you can come back to them if you want to. But in that way as well, nobody else knows your business, and it's all just on paper. And if you've written on paper, it's like when you phone a friend, sometimes you might find that you regret what you're saying because you spoke it in the moment. But if you've journaled it on paper, you haven't told anybody, it's just you that reads it. So it depends on the mood you're feeling. It depends on the mood and how you're feeling in the moment, but that's a good one. And writing a letter to someone, or to yourself, or to your younger self, as the saying goes now. Writing a letter to someone, like a distant relative, maybe your cousin, whoever you want to write a letter to, your neighbour, or to yourself, as to what you would like to change in the future, how your future looks, which may look different to now, how your future can look, and writing yourself like an inspirational letter for your future self. So give these a go and let me know how you get on with these. And this will be the beginning of changing new habits instead of looking back on the old ones and repeating the old ones over and over again. We don't want to do that. We know we don't want to do that. That's why we're here today. So give these a go. I will send you a copy of the new patterns to look at, the permanent patterns to look at. I will send you that over. And again, just let me know how this all sits with you. Let me know how this feels for you, how this resonates. And until then, I shall speak to you again soon, I should believe, and see you soon. Bye.